Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 6th of October, 2024. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
Crippled again.
And Robert Kemp.
Snap.
Not quite the same.
No, not quite the same. Mine was my own doing. Don't run. Top tip.
Don't run ever for any reason.
No,
Don't run.
Don't run. It's bad for you.
Only ever amble.
Makes you feel bad. How
has this crippled you?
Well, I don't know. It hasn't really. But my ankle hurt for quite a bit afterwards. But it seems to have sorted itself out now, so that's okay.
Meanwhile, Zach, you've not run anywhere.
No, I just slept wrong, apparently.
Oh, no. Don't sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep is for food.
That's the trick.
The mantra long held by the Saladcast. Sleep is for food. But it is really nice.
So how has this crippled you, sleeping wrong?
I messed up my back somehow.
Oh, no.
But then, in order to solve that, I've just been sleeping again. It's like sleep is the problem, sleep is the solution.
But
Alcohol, the cause and solution to all of life's problems.
Yeah. But do you have to sleep in a specific? Are you trying to sleep in a specific way to heal it? Then, like just back sleep, or is it
find whichever position actually feels less shit?
Yeah, I find when it's been a while since my back has gone, but when it does, it's basically be as flat as possible on my back. That seems to be the trick.
Don't you sleep face down though, Zach? Like opposite to that, usually.
Not as much as I used to.
Oh.
That's kind of. I don't know why that became less of a thing. Maybe it was just when I was in hospital and I couldn't, and then I phased it out then.
Right.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, that'd do it. I mean, that's useful.
That's probably good, right?
Yeah, because if you ever had to go to hospital again,
I did
for whatever
eventually
reason,
figure out a way to do it in hospital. It just involves you have to do a very precise setup maneuver in order to not fuck with all the shit stuck in your arm.
right?
Obviously. And then you have to keep that arm sort of extra far out to the side also.
and then remember to turn back the same way you came.
Yeah.
But maybe if you're sleeping on your back more often now, maybe now it's revealing
I'm not sleeping on my back. I'm sleeping on my side.
On your side, I see.
Oh,
okay.
I do occasionally back sleep, and apparently that's just the worst, because that's when you snore horrendously.
Oh, is that right? Well,
your
what's supposed to be
tongue falls in your mouth.
Pretty much, yeah.
What's supposed to be good for your back then? Surely, I thought sleeping your back was meant to be best for your back if you had the right mattress, right?
Well, funnily enough, just this morning when I was looking at the BBC homepage, they had a random segment from a show which is what is the good position to sleep in to help your back? And I was like, well, that's helpful and relevant.
Convenient.
Coincidentally.
And
the first one they said is sleep on your side, but put a pillow between your knees to keep your knees more straight.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that. And also,
the second one,
presumably one of those pillows that goes under your neck as well, so your head's flat and not kinked.
It was normal pillows at the head end and pillow between legs, and then the second one was on your back but with pillow under your knees, so your knees arch up slightly.
Oh, interesting.
How do these things are supposed to keep position when you're actually no longer conscious? Surely you're moving around.
Yeah,
I am.
Just kick it away.
Yeah.
Well, theoretically, you don't react. If you're actually asleep, you shouldn't move at all. Theoretically, it's just that there's a long stage in between thinking you're asleep and being actually really asleep. That mysterious unconsciousness bit.
Yeah, I don't think I could keep a pillow in a specific position during that period.
No, I don't think I could either.
I don't think I'd be able to stay in one position that long, even if I think I probably move around, I partially wake up and turn over and stuff.
Yeah.
Probably. Although the counter argument to that would be like sometimes when I'm going to bed and it's like my nose is running or whatever, and I've got a handkerchief in my hand, I'll wake up with it still in my hand. Like I've managed to keep that grip on it the entire night, even while I was completely asleep.
That's impressive.
Have you ever done that with a drink in a chair? Like, because I have. I've definitely like nodded off whilst holding a beverage in my. Open topped beverage, in a glass or something.
On a sofa.
Yeah, on a sofa or in a couch or something, and then in a couch, it's just sort of embedded in it. Like,
if you're asleep, you kind of might be more embedded.
Yeah, and then woken up later and been like, that's still in my hand. Okay, that's good. and I don't appear to be damp. I have maintained this.
I'm not sure if I've just never achieved this or I've never attempted it.
I wouldn't recommend it.
No.
No. Probably also depends on like exactly how tired you are or whatever, or like how you fell asleep.
Yeah, how long I was actually asleep for, because I don't know that. But I'm
trying to think of if I've fallen asleep on a train or something while holding my phone and then woken up and it not having dropped it. I don't think so.
What do you mean you've always dropped it?
You've woken up and found you've dropped it.
No, I don't think. I think I put it away before I fall asleep. I don't know.
You can fall asleep on. Well, okay, falling asleep on trains isn't a problem. Falling asleep on modern English trains in those god awful chairs.
Situation, yeah, they're getting worse, aren't they? I think it's all on purpose, isn't it? It's not like they think they're more comfortable. They know they're less comfortable, right? They built the new train.
They must have done. Unless they made a mistake and went to like a posture specialist and were like, you should make your chairs like this.
I don't think it's for the comfort or the posture of the passengers or the health of the passengers. I think it's for, what is it for?
It's probably just for squeezing more chairs in a way.
Yeah, that was the classic airline thing. It's just, can you fit people close together? But then there's also easier to clean, right? Must be important.
Possibly, yeah.
Stuff like that. And maybe that's more important now after the pandemic stuff.
But they're still like fabric, aren't they? They've still got that.
Yeah.
That's going to go.
But they used to have quite a lot of cushioning on, didn't they? Or like a give to them.
I suppose they would absorb. Yeah.
Yeah.
But surely the solution to that is to still make them spongy, but just put like a waterproof layer on top, like.
Yeah,
I'm not saying leather or anything, or vegan leather, but
just make the like pillow panels detachable, so you can just like unclip them and just slide them out when they need washing, and then dump them in an industrial washing machine of some kind.
See, that's far too sensible.
They don't. Do they do that? I think on the tube ones, which are probably the most used. Yeah, gross. Exactly. They do. I think they just reupholster them sometimes, right? Because you can tell because half the train is like new moquettes, and the rest it just looks. If you just see new moquette versus old, it looks the contrast is extreme. Just the color.
Unless they change the color every now and then, just so they can age the train.
Yeah.
This was the beige phase.
Finally getting new trains on the Piccadilly line next year. Exciting. Current runs are only from 1975. It's not that old.
That's fine. Keep going.
Keep it going.
Probably hideously inefficient electric motors at this point, but
well, I suppose that's the thing about electric motors, don't have many moving parts. They've probably been many times replaced, all the moving parts. Yeah.
Am I misremembering this? But did like old electric motors like have a sort of smell to them, or am I just thinking like, was that just Scalextrics or something? Was there something?
No, I think they do. It's similar, right?
Yeah.
It's just that Scalextrics.
I don't know if it's just old ones.
Yeah,
might just be any motor.
Sort of ionizing the air around it or something. I don't know. But that's even a thing. I don't understand it. Smell of hot metal somewhere, I suppose.
It's definitely a kind of Scalextric-y smell, though, isn't there? That's
On the underground, yeah.
Like metallic-y.
Yeah.
But I think most of the smell on the underground would be from brake dust and brakes rather than from the motors. Because obviously brakes are just abrasive and they make dust. That's how they work. They wear down. And that has to go somewhere, and it goes all in that air that people breathe in.
Lovely. I need a break. No. I need to stop this train.
I mean, yeah, but that will be one thing that's better. They'll have better regenerative braking. That does seem to work quite well, right?
Sure. Why not? I guess that saves on brake wear, I suppose.
Yeah, because the energy just goes into generating.
But does that cause more motor wear? I don't know. Again, I don't know how that works. But
yeah, I don't know. I think it's overall a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Faux show. So we watched Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Yeah.
Before it comes off.
As in me and Rob, not Dan.
You had to go fast.
We had to go fast. I mean, he did say that.
He still says that at least once.
Yeah.
Once per movie.
Gotta go fast.
Did he escape from the city?
Well,
that's not Sonic 2. It's Sonic Adventure 2.
Kind of, but it wasn't a city. It was an avalanche.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you have to have the snowboarding, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's just not on a city street. It's more like Sonic Adventure 1.
And it wasn't a bit of metal ripped off the side of a random part of a helicopter this time. It was stolen off a badnik or whatever.
I mean, kind of the same.
Yeah.
And he
but
did
it had a homage to that sequence, did it?
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's a homage, but...
Well, I think Sonic snowboarding is just a homage to Sonic in general. It's like it's been done in so many of the different games.
At least 3 that I can think of. Yeah.
That classic line about rolling around at the speed of sound and you're not.
Well, no, there's no roll. There's no rolling.
There's no rolling.
I mean, there's rolling later in the level, I suppose.
I mean, when he's going fast, he he tends to just run, not roll.
Yeah.
Even in the games, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, the spin dash involves a roll.
Yeah, and
it does, but it doesn't usually maintain speed or increase speed.
It depends on the game. There are definitely some games. You can
usually be faster by running.
Yeah, there's definitely some games where rolling is a quicker or a speed run tactic, I suppose. But yeah, I sort of said to Zach immediately after we watched it, it's like, I don't know how to feel about that film.
I mean, it's for kids, right? These films, they're not necessarily for long-time Sonic. Are they for long-time Sonic fans? I don't know.
Well, that's sort of the problem, because they're like this one, probably more than the first, is kind of filled to the brim with references.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes more subtle than others, but like there's some cool nods here and there, and it's and that stuff, like, you're only really some of that you're only really going to know if you're familiar with the Genesis and Mega Drive era of games, and you're just like okay, I see what you did there. That's cool. I don't think
that's the golden era of Sonic. For
sure, yeah, but possibly one that the current generation of kids, if it's a kids movie, are actually going to really get, or maybe they haven't been exposed to that stuff. Like it's
and also, there's a whole chunk of that movie that's just a wedding drama.
Yeah, that's
which is like, I'm not sure how that begins.
That's a really weird segment, isn't it? It just doesn't quite fit in. Like in some ways, but parts of it are actually funny. Actually funny, but like, are they Sonic film material? No.
And also, it doesn't tie into the rest of the film in almost any way.
No.
It's just a reason for them to be on a Hawaiian island near the Hawaiian island where the end of the film ends.
It's also so the cast and crew could have a fun time in Hawaii.
I think so.
Probably.
I think it's just a poor way of being able to bring back the human actors they had from the first one, right? Like, and not just have the entire thing about Jim Carrey and the CG guys.
Sure, but they nicely set it up so they could not be in the film most of the time by being like, oh, they're going on holiday. So
yeah, And then
they'll probably show up at some point, but they don't have to be in the whole rest of the film. But then you also see what they're doing on holiday, which is this whole wedding thing.
It's because of the slightly awkward angle that they're playing Sonic at, right? Like, and Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. They're sort of pitching them all as kids, right? Even though we don't really know what their age is, particularly, like how much time has passed. From Long Claw onwards, I guess we don't really know that, but they're basically saying they're all kids and treating them like kids. So now they have a dad, I suppose, a human dad character, not just the friend character that you were trying to set up in the first one. It's I don't know. Doesn't that that whole the human involvement actually is the weakest element. I mean, Jim Carrey's still funny, so I don't know what they'll do in the third one.
I thought he wasn't going to come back for the second one, but he did. But is he not in the third one?
Well, I don't think. I don't know. I honestly have lost track of the situation. Like I thought it was after the second. They said he was bowing out, but and I don't know quite.
Well, I mean, they've given themselves an obvious, convenient way to just have a completely different actor if they want. It's like, we never found the body or whatever, and it's just like he can just come back in whatever form he feels like.
Yeah, but no one can act.
Be a robot in the next movie.
No one can act like Jim. Sometimes for the better. Like I don't know. They were like, I think he probably did. He wasn't as uniquely crazy as he was in the first film, and that's probably just because the first film exists, right? But some of the his mannerisms and stuff in this one weren't as catchy or as weird in places. They just were a bit more cringy than anything. There's far too many modern references as well that to TV shows or people, or some of them even don't even make sense. There's one in particular that I can't remember off the top of my head, but I've been thinking, it was like when they were talking about like rivalries or something, and they're like, and he goes, you mean like Vin Diesel and The Rock? And I'm like, okay, I've watched the Fast and Furious films, like that that rivalry kind of ends.
It comes and goes.
Yeah, it's like I don't know.
And also, it's like a number of movies into that series. Even that's not like the original.
No, I don't think that one really works. He has a few moments like that where he references modern stuff, and it's just like I don't. I don't.
But what modern rivalry would you reference?
Gex, because that's what this is reminding me of. Like some of those moments, I don't know. Or you don't know. Well, maybe you should have brought Mario into the mix, just know that Mario exists as a video game character in this universe. I don't know, they could have done something there.
That seems like that's going to be too much in-played lore.
They didn't even go to the Olympic Games this year. I mean,
no, they didn't.
What's going on?
They can't even be asked to fight each other in the sporting arena. Maybe they got bored of it after Smash Bros. Ultimate. They were just like, no, I can't be asked to fight you anymore, dude. Just, I don't know.
So you're hoping that this is an awkward middle one, and then Sonic 3 with Shadow the Hedgehog played by Keanu Reeves will zoom into the
maybe
stratosphere.
I don't even know that they got the Sonic Tails dynamic right, and that's kind of the whole thing, or you'd think would be the whole thing of this one. Knuckles isn't quite stupid enough. Like, I don't think Idris Elba did a bad job with him, but they've positioned Knuckles as, I guess, a little bit more like the Sonic Adventure style Knuckles, and that he's
right,
noble and honorable, but not as dumb. not like Royd's Knuckles. They should have brought everyone. Sonic Boom Knuckles is unfortunately best Knuckles.
Well, supposedly the Netflix TV show that comes after this is surprisingly good, right? So now you can watch that.
I heard opposite. I heard it was a bit messy. The Knuckles show.
Really?
Oh no! Wait, no. Where is the Knuckles show? Is that a Netflix thing, or is that somewhere else? That might have been Paramount.
I think so. Oh, really? I'm losing track. I haven't got any of these services anymore. waiting for Severance to come back in January so I can re-up on my Apple TV.
Yeah, I'd probably only want Apple TV so I can watch that Tetris movie and then, the terrible...
Have you not watched Severance? Oh man,
no, I haven't watched Severance. But...
Although you guys haven't watched quite a few things.
No, we don't. Well, we don't have Apple TV.
Big things.
But,
yeah.
But no, I haven't watched that. And as I say, I'd probably only get Apple Plus. But I think there's a few things Gnome would want to watch on there. But yeah, I'd watch that Taron Egerton Tetris film, see what that's about. That looked kind of cool. In a sort of Steve Jobsy kind of way, but it's the Russian guy. Anyway, Sonic 2. Not very. It's a bit meh. They did the meow joke again. I don't think they could.
Again?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was only funny because it was combined with the insanity of Ugly Sonic in the original trailer.
Meow.
The teeth and everything.
I want to know how much of Sonic's script is driven by script and script writers, or if this is just Ben Schwartz's comedy. So I know who to not like.
Oh, I see. Who is he again?
I don't know, some American comedian person.
What else is he in?
Don't actually know.
Sonic. Oh, I'm looking him up now. He is very funny as the most annoying character possible in Parks and Rec. Right. John Ralphio. Anyway, if you haven't seen that, it's a good sitcom. And you think he's the most irritating possible character on purpose, and then they introduce his sister, who's even worse.
It's got Chris Pratt in it. He's so cool.
Yeah. Well, that's where he came from, right?
So cool.
He's so cool. He's so cool.
Here we come. Anything else random going on? Oh yeah, I was going to talk about why before we were setting up the podcast, why my IP address changed. This is here comes the very unfunny.
Tale as old as time.
The very unfunny bits more.
There's a very unfunny bit more. Okay.
Yeah. So, Marzy's getting quite, he's getting clever now, to the point where he's figured out that the door key goes in the front door, and that he can open the front door. So he's slightly.
How can he reach the?
Yeah, he can just about reach them both and do that, and God. It's terrifying because he's not smart enough to still understand no. Although he proved to us the other day he kind of does understand it, but he just doesn't act on it when we say no. Yeah, because he was sat next to the cat, and he obviously him and the cat he doesn't quite understand how to treat the cat with respect. And the cat's a dick, so he prods the cat, and the cat takes a sort of little swipe at him, and he just goes no at the cat, and we're like, "I'm sorry, what?"
Okay,
it's how dare you use that phrase like that when you don't listen to us?
Yeah, you can tell off other things.
How very dare you?
That's quite funny.
So I don't quite understand. I wasn't nearby when this happened particularly, but somehow Milesy, I guess Gnome had just sat Miles on the kitchen counter for a moment, and he found a couple of, I guess the sort of Allen key driven long screws that you get with IKEA stuff.
Yeah,
the ones, the silvery ones.
Yeah.
Every bit of IKEA furniture has somewhere, and he managed to find 2 of those on the kitchen surface and put them in the toaster.
Oh, my God.
Toaster wasn't on, fortunately.
No.
And Gnome had noticed they had gone in, so she tried to tip them out, got one of them out. I don't, either she did or she didn't, but I don't know if she knew what had happened to the other one, and then turned the toaster on, and of course, trips the power. And I'm like, holy shit, you did what?
This is it'll turn up.
Yeah.
Fished one out of the toaster and then was like, well, I don't know where the other one is, but anyway, let's make some toast.
Let's just try it. And it's like, yeah, of course, it just trips the power.
Right, of course.
Like, so that obviously restarted my router, and that's how I got a new IP address this week.
I see. Okay,
There we go. Story. Very unfunny story.
Did you just take the second one out of the toaster and it works fine, or is it?
Yes, no, I did. Well, I'm pretty sure that's how I broke the last toaster, or at least half of the other toaster, by tipping it upside down and shaking it around a bit, trying to get the thing. And the spring then came off, or something off the, the actual push downy bit.
Right.
What do you even call those? Are they levers or like handles? If they just get move in a straight line, like
I think it is called a lever, isn't it? Even though, what would you say?
Toast lever.
Yeah.
The pop and stop.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, the pop handle.
The pop handle. So, did you have to replace the fuse, or did you just have to reset the
yeah, well, yeah, we've got an RCD, so you can just flip the switch and it comes back. So that wasn't the problem. But yes, I did then spend quite a lot of time tipping the toaster around trying to get this screw to come out to an accessible place. And it did eventually, although I'd have to kind of bend some plastic to get it out the bottom, out the crumb tray. Holy shit, a lot of crumbs came out of that toaster. Like half a loaf of bread in that thing.
Well, that just tells you need to empty it more often.
It really does.
Half a loaf of bread in the toaster. No wonder he lost one of those silvery IKEA screws in there.
Oh gosh, I could have stolen it, and he wouldn't have got away with it.
Do you use your toaster a lot, like every morning?
Yeah, Gnome does. I'm not.
Right, yeah.
Don't use it all that frequently, but like she alternates between a few things in the mornings, and toast is one of them. And toast and jam is something you can give the badger.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think that was the plan then as well. It's like, can you just do some toast for me?
What, do you think Miles was trying to make toast?
Yeah, I bet he sort of probably has seen that, and I was like, I put things in it, and then toast comes out.
The Amityville toaster.
Make breakfast spooky. Yeah, so he's getting clever, but not clever enough. not yet. He
knows enough to be dangerous.
Absolutely. It's hilarious and terrifying, all at once. It's the random section of this podcast.
So what's going on in the news section of this podcast? News! Video game news.
This is a podcast about video games. Yeah. I'm going to skip ahead to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog news.
Obviously.
Segue.
Yeah. Sort of interrupted segue. Should have done the IP story and then talked about Sonic and then talked about Sonic news. They announced, I think that this was at the Sony State of Play, that some of the new content they're adding for Shadow in Sonic Generations X Shadow will be themed on the new movie, and thus features the voice of Keanu Reeves.
All right.
Hot news. So
Johnny Silverhand.
What? Just in those sections?
Yeah, that's the bit that confuses me. Now I don't know. Does the
Shadow not have a voice at any other point?
Yeah, I don't know. Didn't he have some
I guess
voice?
He wouldn't have to say much.
Didn't he have some voice clips in Generations generally when you just went and talked to him to do his sub levels?
I'm sure he probably had one singular line where it's like "fight me" or whatever.
That's what it was. Fight me. Yes, there you go.
Like what all the other characters in Generations had that, right? When you free them or whatever, and you talk to them, and they have one singular line, and then some text because it wasn't actually voice acted.
Oh yeah. So yeah, maybe they replaced that one clip. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know honestly, but hey, Keanu's in another video game. So I guess what this means. Hot news. Let's talk about the rest of that Sony State of Play. Not too many big takeaways, I don't personally think. A couple of games I thought looked kind of cool, but stuff I probably wouldn't play. shout out to The Midnight Walk, which is from the developers that worked on Lost in Random, just because it's got this really creepy stop motion claymation aesthetic going on. And I guess Lost in Random kind of had a bit of that sort of going on, so the lineage kind of makes sense. Yeah, it looks pretty creepy. But it's just kind of weird to point out that they've got that Sony are pushing a game like that, and also like Microsoft are also pushing a game that's sort of stop motion as well. That's not coming out this year, but like I can never remember the name of. But hey, maybe stop motion's hot right now. People want that hell of it money.
Right.
So there's that. There was a Souls-like game called Hell Is Us that looked a little bit like it was going to turn into a military shooter, something like Metro style or a zombie thing. Kind of thought it might have been a Days Gone announcement of some kind at first, but no, it's a Souls-like, but yeah, kind of like sort of like near future Soulsborne, like not fantasy or anything like that or anything weird like that. So you're just seemingly a dude with you've got a magic sword of some kind, but and a drone, just a regular ass drone following you, and the enemies are all kind of like quite geometric looking. I guess like the most one that was featured the most were just these like pure white dudes. Basically, they had no real texture on them apart from like a hole for a face. I don't know. Had a nice aesthetic. That's why I pick it out. It's like. As someone who hasn't really played any Soulsborne or Souls-like games, had a nice look to it. Weirdly, one of the bigger announcements for some reason out of Sony was, hey, you like Horizon Zero Dawn, right? It's about time we remastered that all bloody ready, right?
Already, as well as making a Lego version.
Yeah, God, and that's had some like weird ramifications as well. So, like, okay, they're doing to Horizon Zero Dawn to bring it up to the graphic fidelity that was done in Forbidden West. It's
right.
Like, okay, fine, you console generation apart, I suppose. I still think it's a bit soon, personally, but that's not stopped Sony before.
I guess all the way to the PS5 Pro would be a bit of a leap.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
I mean, sure, it looks nice. I'm not going to take that away from it. It does look nice. It's just it's that Horizon game again.
Yeah.
And also like another sort of slight reminder that it's like, you know what? Like we haven't actually had many. Like, I guess the Astrobot problem, right? We haven't actually had many marquee games out of Sony this generation. Really.
Yeah. I mean, Horizon was an example of one of the few of the last generation. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. It was like new IP and, new franchise. Yeah. It was one of those conscious, a bit like back in the day with Assassin's Creed. Like, it was a conscious attempt to create a franchise, I think, which worked,
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Sort of, maybe a little bit cynical, but at least they had a sort of semi-unique concept.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not interested in playing it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's fine, and I sort of felt the same way as I was playing it. Honestly, like it's well presented.
I mean, that definitely
fine.
suffered from coming out at the same time as Breath of the Wild, right?
Sure. Yeah, it was similarly.
But suffered in comparison, despite looking obviously quite a lot technically better.
And it's one of those games where the character you control is constantly talking to themselves.
Right, yeah.
which gets slightly weird after a while.
Who's the voice actress, isn't it?
It's Ashley Birch.
Yeah, that's cool though, right?
Yeah. No, I as I say, I'm not saying she did or anyone on that voice cast did a bad job. I think it's perfectly fine.
Right, yeah.
Just doesn't excite me. I don't know. Like it's good looking, but it just doesn't excite me. I think that's That's what the big games have been missing for a while. It's like hasn't been anything that's been like, oh man, I definitely want to play that. I don't know. I still haven't played Ragnarok. That is kind of the one.
Yeah, you need to play God of War.
And the more recent Spider-Man. Like those are on my to-do list for sure. And I should point out, I'm saying that as if Microsoft has put out games that like which they obviously haven't. Anywho, it's just sort of a bit of a weird reminder. Anyway, so they're doing that. We're getting a remaster already. The ramifications, the weird one is like prior to that announcement, you could buy a copy of Zero Dawn, the regular PS4 version, for $20 off the American PlayStation Store. And for some reason, after this announcement, that price jumped to $40. Like it doubled in price for the old version of it before this even came out. And then they were like, oh, by the way, but you can upgrade to the PS5 version if you have the old version for a $10.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And it's like, right. I guess they're trying to stop people from just being able to buy the old version, pay the $9.99 to get the new version. No, they want that full $50 for anyone going in on it.
I see. Okay. But if you, it sort of makes sense because if you legitimately bought it and played it before, you get the cheap upgrade, right? I don't know.
Indeed.
I don't know.
Unless
I don't know
you're
what would be the right thing, but yeah.
Yeah, unless you're like me and you played it on PS Plus, right? Then you're out of luck.
Right.
So there's that. That's Horizon news. They showed a little bit more about Horizon, the Lego game. But they were more focusing on hey, you can customize your town because it's Lego. And it's like, great. Is there more game to show here? Like, I don't know. I'm so 50-50 on whether that's going to be good.
I think it'll be pretty good for a kids game.
You know what? I think it will be fine.
Yeah.
Power World, everyone's favorite lawsuit. No news on that at the moment.
Surprisingly fun game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you haven't gone back to it, have you, Zach?
Well, no, because we were kind of waiting for updates, obviously.
Right. Yeah,
and they've been doing some.
And I think there might be some more coming, but it was announced at the State of Play because it's getting its PlayStation launch.
Which is hilarious. It released, I think it's already out. I think it came out on 25th or something. It was basically that was under kind of
when
week.
The State of Play was, right? Yeah.
It was under a week from when they basically said they were getting sued, and then Sony's like, here it is on PlayStation. Which, I don't know, maybe Sony is super hands-off about it and just is like, we're not even going to pay attention to any of that. We're just going, this is just a game that's queued up in our release queue.
Exactly.
Or maybe, if they are paying attention at all, Sony doesn't think the lawsuit is going anywhere.
I assume Sony don't care, right? I assume Sony aren't publishing it, so it's
but
not their problem.
You wouldn't want to put out a game onto your platform that immediately gets taken down, basically, right?
I mean, I guess that's a bad look. Yeah, in the Cyberpunk on PlayStation thing, right?
Yeah. So you'd think that on some level they would be paying at least that much attention to it. But whether they, made a legal assessment and were like, it's probably going to be fine.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it from that angle. Otherwise, we haven't learned anything about what the actual patent or whatever the Nintendo are trying to pull is on that. More Nintendo news to come later. And I guess the big reveal of the show was Ghost of Yotai. Adding Ghost of Tsushima to the list of one of the games I should probably get around to playing because, my God, I'm just a sucker for that aesthetic. And holy shit, this game looks good. Just visually, it's like, oh, there's so many leaves coming off those trees for no good reason.
Can you not skip to that one then? Do you need to play?
No, probably not. And I think that they're positioning Yotai as having new protagonists, so right. it might be a completely separate story.
Yeah.
But damn. you found my weakness again.
I'm surprised you didn't play it the first time around.
Yeah, because I've considered it
even in the lead up to release, you were pretty hyped for it.
Yeah, I've considered it on many occasions. It's like I could just get a cheap disc probably and stick it in my PS4 and have a good time with it. I think I then got to the point where it's just like, but now do I want to just play it on PS5 and get the benefit of the fact they did that work to improve the frame rate on PS5? So it's like, do I want to do that? I know that PC version's out now as well, so maybe when I upgrade my PC next year, a whole year from now.
It seems like this is an opportunity for them to add more depth to the gameplay, though, right?
Sure,
Which is probably what you want. Yeah,
because that was the main complaint of the first game, was that the loop was kind of all there was.
Yeah.
Although the story is intriguing and those kind of like boss-esque encounters, I think are what are really drawing me in.
Did you watch the Shogun or whatever?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen Shogun.
I think you'd like that. I watched it.
Yeah, that's on Disney. That's on Disney, isn't it?
Probably. I don't know. I can't remember where I got it.
Of course.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting because it's an adaptation of a novel that has been adapted before and is a somewhat famous novel, I think. But they're going to make another season of it because it's been a big success and it's won loads of awards, but they've already run out of material. So I have a feeling this will be the one good season of it.
Maybe watch the first and then give up. Yeah.
And then give up. Yeah, I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens with the rest of it, but like it is a contained story.
Why do they do that? Why can't like people just not happy with having contained storylines? It's just
that's the way it goes. But anyway, that's fine.
Movies with sequels that don't need to exist. It's like just stop. Just be happy in yourself.
No. Yeah, I think you'd like it.
Mom said to me the other day that she wasn't sure that she'd seen The Matrix properly, or at least that she hadn't seen it since it came out. And I'm like, I'm
any excuse to watch The Matrix.
100%. Yeah, I'm so up for that again.
That'd be so cool having never seen The Matrix and then you got to watch it and just never watch the sequels and you'd be so,
I suppose,
so good.
Yeah. Well, I think she has seen it but hasn't seen it since like the early 2000s or something like that.
Yeah, it's 25 years old.
You probably saw it on VHS or some shit. Like, we should do this. And I sort of thought, it's like, haven't you watched it with us when we had like the HD copies? And like,
right.
Like, no, apparently not. Is
it one of those films where you just think, oh, I've seen that or whatever?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, every time you go to rewatch, you're like, Oh
my God, that film. So good.
It's brilliant.
Even if you can see the camera in shot on a few occasions, it's still great. That's the state of play. That's what I pulled from that. In other news, Nintendo have killed off Ryujinx, the other major Switch emulator.
Okay.
And we don't really know the story behind it this time. Like with Yuzu, I think there was a fair cop moment because they were including like encryption keys that you're supposed to pull off your own console into it, proprietary stuff that you're not really supposed to ship with the game kind of deal. Yeah, it's kind of in that area of like system BIOSes and things like that where you're not really supposed to just go and get them. You're supposed to dump them off your own system to be squeaky clean. As squeaky clean as you can be with emulation, but we don't know the situation with Ryujinx. The owner of the GitHub organization, I think it is, GDK-chan, has been, quote, offered an agreement to basically stop work and remove all the content, to which it's assumed, he hasn't actually said, but it's assumed that that's what happened because it's gone. And it's a bummer. It's like, okay, yes, they were playing a risky game by emulating a current console.
I just never understand. It's amazing that people do this, but it must be so much work to get an emulator working. And you must know the entire time that you could just be destroyed at any moment.
I do wonder if it's getting easier to some extent, right? Because of the like homogenization of modern console tech. Yeah, the Switch is kind of the outlier, I suppose, because it's more ARM based. Yeah. But then, like, is that actually a relatively known quantity? Because it's still an NVIDIA Tegra chip, essentially. So it's like, can the graphics pipeline of that be quite easily reproduced? I suppose ultimately they'll just like fall back to OpenGL or something, right? They must have some underlying layer that's translatable. And apparently that's what they're doing with like Xbone emulation. Like, yes, people are for some reason doing Xbox One emulation, and they're doing it through Proton-like translation layers, not through HLE emulation as in the traditional sense. But they're making progress on that, so that's kind of fun. Yeah, but I it's obviously a bummer to see. You don't want to see emulation products die, but you can sort of understand why Yuzu and Ryujinx would be in Nintendo's crosshairs because they're current gen stuff, and it probably has. I don't want to say it, but like I don't know. Maybe when you're dealing with current gen stuff, maybe the piracy argument is more valid. Maybe.
Well, I mean, if you want to make an argument about like the preservation of games or whatever, you could also extend that to like the preservation of consoles, right? Because you can't literally buy a Wii or whatever any longer, apart from secondhand, but not from an official source.
And there's like a
so having an emulator is sort of preserving that hardware.
Yeah, exactly. The preservation argument's the obvious one, right? That's why people do this stuff. Is to have access to things that are never going to be made again. Which just reminded me, I don't know where my copy of Mario Odyssey is. I couldn't find it, and I can't. So I don't know what's happened to that. I reckon Badger's eaten it, despite the terrible taste.
That would be pretty hardcore. You managed to get through the gross taste.
Yeah, that's quite disappointing. Don't know where that cart is. Yeah. Anyway, that's Nintendo news. What else is going on? Let's. I mentioned the Xbone. Let's flip-flop to Xbox. They have apparently said that they are essentially aware that fewer multi-platform games are now getting Xbox releases. And I don't know if that's necessarily true of the big AAA titles. This probably affects the sort of like maybe premium indie, I suppose, or mid indie, Mindy. It would basically, the Xbox are slightly worried that people are choosing to make games for Switch and PlayStation and starting to skip the Xbox. So they seem aware of this. They have started reaching out to devs, basically saying, "Hey, what's going on? why aren't you making stuff for Xbox?" And there was one documented case of one developer basically saying, "Because you stopped talking to us," to which then Phil Spencer himself went and rekindled that relationship and got the game back on.
Oh, really?
So that's now planned to have an Xbox. I can't remember what the game was. There's a Kotaku article about it. But I find that fascinating. I actually kind of believe that for some games that haven't necessarily come out yet, there's a very real possibility that that's true because of all the layoffs, right? Like that layoffs happened internally at Microsoft of people that were probably managing these dev accounts, and they just didn't do handover.
Right.
Right? They just get lost in the system. And I'm not saying like Sony have not had layoffs as well, but like not to the extent Microsoft have recently. So I can believe that some of this was just straight up admin fail. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's like Microsoft cert is just stricter than anyone else, and so it's more of a pain in the ass for developers to actually get their stuff onto Xbox now. Don't know. Actually, I don't have a good idea. Exactly what's going on. I did see one suggestion on the Kotaku. Why can't I say that? Kotaku article. The
Kotaku.
The Kotaku, yeah. Yeah, I quite like that. The Kotaku about that maybe Game Pass is training people to not buy games, and I kind of buy into that because I don't necessarily buy that many games anymore. Because I just play what's on Game Pass for the most part. So maybe that's true, but then I don't know that Game Pass is an all-encompassing beast still. It's popular, but I don't think like every Xbox owner has it. I don't get the impression that for some people, I'm not even sure I get the impression that it's a particularly well-known thing. Like sometimes you talk to people about Game Pass and they're like, oh, what's that? And they're like, sorry, what? But it's right on the dashboard. So maybe it doesn't break through to the non-hardcore market as much as you think. So I don't know. I don't know how much of an impact that's having, but I could kind of agree that perhaps that's a problem for Microsoft. Which my argument would be, put more stuff on Game Pass then. Do more deals with these devs that want their games on there. Like, do more talking. Do more admin. Maybe don't fire your admin staff. So that's that. There's a media research paper recently came out suggesting that 53% of players prefer single-player games. It's
53?
53%. So
okay, slight majority.
Slight majority prefer single-player games over multiplayer games. And like...
What is that? I'm sure a lot of people play both, right?
Sure, but...
Prefer? What does that mean, prefer?
Yeah, it's like, would you choose to play a multiplayer game, I guess, like over a...
And also, what's their definition of multiplayer even? Because, like, does Deep Rock count as multiplayer in their assessment?
Right.
It's technically multiplayer, but it's not like PvP, which is an important distinction.
I would assume, given the vagueness of that statement, yes, they would include Deep Rock as
So, I mean, if you had to answer that question, what would you answer then?
That's really tough.
Single player, right?
I think these days, yes, I would say single player, just because it fits into my life better. Now. Like, the idea to me of playing multiplayer games is still there. And there's still plenty of multiplayer games that I'm sure would have an absolutely amazing time. But we just don't have that life anymore. And you guys aren't necessarily, like, even Zach, right? We're just not that sort of player anymore. We don't just fire up anything on the N64 and go, oh, it's got a multiplayer mode. Let's see what that is. Like we used to back in the day. It's just not how we roll.
I don't think that's the same thing exactly.
You know what I mean?
In my case, it's more that I just went off strict PvP, or like realistically, I got to the point where I was only maintaining like one PvP game at a time. Like, it was Team Fortress, and then when Team Fortress got faded away, it was Rocket League. It's just like, But before that, obviously, it was like one of the battlefields.
But I don't just mean like online multiplayer games. I'm sort of thinking like, couch multiplayer games and stuff. That's just not a thing we do anymore, and it's not really a thing I think of many people do. I mean, you and I play Lethal League every now and then, sure.
Well, I mean, like it's
things.
More like it's not that. Sure, but it's not like that's almost in the same category of like you only do like one at a time, kind of.
Maybe, yeah.
It's like if you're going to say, like, if the survey is like, do you prefer multiplayer games or single player games? It's like that's not actually the question for us, really. It's like, do I prefer one multiplayer game or like 10 single player games in the same time span? So like that's not actually a good argument.
Yeah,
really,
it's tricky
to have that question on.
We'd have to dig. Well, you can dig more into the research if you care. The other thing that was brought out again by the Kotaku, that's different again, isn't it?
The Kotaku
is that apparently older gamers, which I guess means us now, generally prefer single player. Again, not surprising, I suppose. We don't have those mad skills we once had. Like, but also, I guess you get to it. Yeah. I didn't grab that. Didn't note that down. But also, like, I can sort of believe that because there comes a point, surely, where you just don't want to deal with that community anymore. You just don't want to deal with the toxicity of online.
That's why I was only playing one at a time, kind of, and why I obviously like. I never communicated in Rocket League. Sure. I never really communicated in Team Fortress either.
No, it just generally sucks.
That might just be me. That might not actually be anything to do with like the game type. That might just be how I work.
No, I don't think you're alone. I think it is a...
Well, sure, obviously.
It's an intimidating and generally horrible place to be.
But it's not like the communication isn't even necessarily the problem. It's just like the weird, it's a purely like internal thing where it's just like the weird anxiety of the social pressure. It's like, I guess you could say that was kind of why I never got into Titanfall, because it was just like, like it was too much pressure for some reason, even though it wasn't that bad.
Or why, like, well, would that stop you from playing like a COD as well? Or
probably, and then like maybe that's why I preferred Battlefield, because like 32 players, and Team Fortress, which was more than Overwatch in terms of player numbers.
Oh, I see what you mean. So there's like a, but yet you're a Rocket Leaguer, I guess. So like where like your mistakes.
I'm a Rocket Leaguer, but I only play 3v3.
Yeah.
Like I don't by myself play 2v2 or 1v1.
Sure, but an individual mistake is still like potentially really damning in Rocket League, right?
I mean, sometimes, but like. If your team is actually functional at all, there's a lot of coverage you can do. And admittedly, that is one of my major problems playing Rocket League, currently. It's just like, what are my teammates even doing? Like, yes, I might have caught that one thing up, but what were they doing at the time also?
Yeah. Standard thought process with any multiplayer game. It's like, yeah, I'm sucking, but what are the rest of you doing? Are you also sucking? Oh, okay, cool. We're all sucking. That's fine.
But no one's ever going to admit to that.
Yeah, you would have noticed in the blurb of the last Saladcast that I completely forgot to talk about Splatoon 3's like grand festival that I've spent an awful lot of time in. It's probably the last major update to Splatoon 3.
To get ready for Splatoon 4 on Switch 2.
Well, yeah, I think that's quite likely. Probably a little bit more time away. I think the gap between 2 and 3 was about 5 years, wasn't it? Something like that. So we're probably a little way off from a Splatoon 4, but yeah, there was just that kind of that whole thought process was going through my head on plenty of occasions during that. It's like, okay, am I doing badly? Is my team not helping me in a way that makes my performance feel worse? Is the game just performing badly? Which was actually, in the case of that weekend, a very real possibility. It felt kind of horrid.
Splatoon has never had particularly good netcode.
No.
Still.
No, it's a real shame, because sometimes it feels great, sometimes it is absolutely atrocious to play. And I feel like it's got worse. Like, I don't know, I don't feel like having such a rough time with Splatoon 2 as I do with 3. Anyway, unless you're playing Salmon Run, of course. Salmon Run for the win.
Salmon Run. It's PvE, obviously.
Give the salmon more love. More on that a little bit later. Actually, I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. Anyway, there's that. Finally, and this one's for you, Dan. I don't know how much of this you're aware of. Magic the Gathering Commander.
No, what?
Oh, okay, okay.
So, Commander.
Yeah. So
the format.
The format. Yeah. So apparently,
I mean, things are going crazy in that world. At the moment.
Exactly. This is why I raised this.
Is this video game news? I guess
kind of, because I guess it's
you
in
can't
Arena.
actually play Commander. Well, you can play it on the old Magic Online or whatever.
Oh, is it not in Arena?
No, it's Brawl is the equivalent, because Arena is only 1v1. Doesn't support like.
Right,
Commander's usually 2v2. Oh no, sorry. What? It's usually 4 independent players in Commander usually.
Right. So I wonder if this makes more sense now then, because like I wonder if they're pivoting to Brawl as their preferred other format, because the news is that hey, they did some bans on like on some expensive and popular
they
cards.
Being the community,
the
people
rules
that
committee,
run the rules committee, which is currently has been independent of Wizards of the Coast.
Correct.
The makers of Magic. Yeah.
So they banned a bunch of cards.
This is because the Commander format was originally a casual format invented by the community and wasn't originally an official thing, and it became an official thing because it became wildly popular.
Sure. So they banned a bunch of cards. A whole bunch of people are unhappy about that. And then very shortly afterwards, they announced that the rules committee that did all that banning has been, quote, voluntarily dissolved.
Well, they were getting death threats and shit.
Yeah.
They were like, fuck this, I think. Yeah.
So, I guess that means the committee quit. Like, fuck this, you guys can run it. And I wonder if that means Commander is just going to be dropped as a official format, and maybe Brawl.
No. It's it's by far the most popular way that people play Magic the Gathering, I think, in IRL. So they're not going to drop Commander as a format. They're taking it over, apparently.
Oh, right. So it's just going to go in-house into the...
Yeah, it's
not the specific... Not a separate rules committee. It's just going to be on whatever they do internally to rule.
Yeah, because the other formats have, ban lists that are maintained by Wizards of the Coast. So they're gonna maintain it or whatever. But the problem is, like, I don't know. It's like... obviously, the ban lists only exist. In case you don't know what ban list is, it's like they print cards, right? They design cards and they print them, but sometimes over the years they make essentially mistakes because the game is so complex. They don't necessarily anticipate a card is going to interact with another card in a way that makes it break the game or just dominate in a way that makes the game no fun to play. So that's why they have bannings, and they've had bannings since the beginning of the game, right? There were cards that were banned when we were playing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's impossible to avoid, and they're supposed to be the idea is that after 20, 30 years, they'd be better at designing cards, right? But like, cards still need to be banned. Like, they fucked up recently, and I talked about it on this podcast with the Nadu one, right? The stupid bird that
right, yes.
Anyway, so that's part of this banning list, by the way, is Nadu. So that's good. So everyone agrees with that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the problem, there wouldn't be a problem if they were more careful in designing the cards, right? They wouldn't have to ban them and people wouldn't get upset. And part of the reason that people are upset with the bannings this time and in general is because it's not just that you can't play with the cards, right, that you've bought or maybe built decks around, right? It's that they instantly lose value. Right,
yes, because some of these bannings were on pretty expensive individual cards, right? Pretty rare.
And sometimes, like, in some cases, this was like they were cards that were designed specifically for the format that were put in like a special packs or whatever that were therefore hard to come by or whatever. And that is a rug pull, right? If you bought those, especially if you're collecting them, and it is a trading card game, so collecting is part of it. And if you screw up the
and investing for some people. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can really screw up the economy and then people can get understandably pissed off. But it wouldn't be a problem if you just if you just balance the cards properly when you design them.
It's an impossible
but it's really hard to do.
Yeah. And we talked about it before, didn't we, on the podcast, where they must go through epic amounts of like pre-play and pre-configuration where, they must have a huge team of either volunteers or
you say they must have. Of course they do, but they don't. I mean, there must be a line drawn, right?
Sure.
I don't think they necessarily do what one might consider enough playtesting. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, depends when, like, what the timeline is between a set's creation, writing out versus playtesting, and how that cycle actually works.
And of course, typically cards, I mean, it's changed because Commander's so popular, but typically cards are not designed for Commander. They're designed, the vast majority of cards are designed for Standard, and they happen to work in Commander, but sometimes there are cards that are designed specifically or like with Commander in mind, but in general they're not. So, and it must be harder because like a standard game of Magic can take like 20 minutes or something, 15 minutes or something, whereas Commander can go on for freaking hours, So how do you play test? It's total chaos. Commander, by nature, it's a casual format. And of course they but they rely on it being a casual format where it's not supposed to be competitive. So you're not supposed to be too worried if things are a bit unbalanced. That's the idea. But some things can ruin the fun.
But they've turned it into that anyway.
Well, there is a subset called CEDH, which is like competitive Commander. But if you're going to do that, that's kind of on the players, right? I think they have a different card pool. That's a community thing to have a competitive version of Commander, but the general version of it is not competitive. But they still have to ban cards because they need to maintain the fun. Basically, it's slightly too easy for a card to like ruin it, and somebody rocks up.
You basically got to have an. You got to make the game what is an intimidating game as least what the smallest amount of intimidation possible. Couldn't say that properly, but
I mean, the thing with Commander, usually it's okay because it's a singleton format with 100 cards in the deck. So, like, even if one card is busted, you're very unlikely to get it. But of course, then there's the Commander you're guaranteed to get. So if there's a busted Commander like Nadu, then you're screwed because you might as well give up immediately. That's what happens with Brawl in Arena. Is you join and you see that they've got they've got Nadu or they've got Ragavan or whatever, and you immediately concede, which is no fun, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
Apparently, there's a deck which is just Ragavan and 99 Mountains, and it still wins quite a lot because the only way that could possibly win is if they immediately concede, but it happens all the time.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's quite entertaining.
Anyway. Yeah, but obviously, like, I don't know. It's drama, a bunch of nerds in a hobby are going to have love. There's been drama for 30 years, right, over the whole thing. Yeah. But it's not, the fact that there's, like, people being horrible and death threats and stuff is just unacceptable.
Yeah. So obviously bad.
So anything to stop that, even if it's, all sad times. Anyway, but I want to play Commander though.
Okay.
I think we should get some Commander precons and play it. But I suppose that would be a bit of an investment for something that we'd only play. It'd be like getting an expensive board game, right?
Hello. Something I've done.
Exactly. And there's only 3 of us, so we probably need to get. And we can't get Rick to play because he'd crush us, presumably.
He would join us for sure, but yes, he would probably absolutely wreck us.
Yeah.
I don't know if he played. Well, he probably doesn't play if he's done much Commander. Actually,
I mean, if he got a precon as well, that might be all right. Anyway, thoughts?
Yeah, interesting. Anyway, magic be magicking. Do that thing. And that's the news. That's what I got. Unless Zach, you got any bonus news? Got to ask Zach for his bonus news.
It's a very non-news week.
But presumably it's a satisfactory week. Is it satisfactory to you? Okay, has it been satisfactory, Zach?
Apart from this bit at the end where I got injured again and couldn't play for like 2 days for the second time. But yes, I did play quite a lot more Satisfactory.
What have you been doing in those 2 days?
Sleeping, like I said.
Oh, okay. Not just
laying down. Yeah, I played quite a lot more Satisfactory. I finally got trains, like I said. I made the first point-to-point train just as as the first train that I made, and it was like, okay, I see how this works, kind of. Although it's a bit, even that is a slightly confusing because you have to build like the stations facing towards the end of the line at both ends, because otherwise the train doesn't know how to path to them. Because if they're
right,
like basically what I'm saying is you can't like design it like that and then integrate it into your system, because you need both the stations to be facing outwards, so you couldn't just like continue the track onwards at both ends and have that work. Well, I suppose you could kind of, but not the same way. But yeah, I did that, and then I was like, okay, so the next space elevator tier comes basically immediately after trains, or like you've been working towards the next space elevator tier while you've got to the point of having trains. And then, so the start of the next tier is where you start using aluminium. And obviously, intentionally, with the design of the map, the only place to get the bauxite for aluminium is like up in the hills in the center of the map. And there's basically no other resources up there either. So you kind of can't build an aluminium factory where the aluminium ore is. You actually intentionally have to be able to ship it. So then I was like, okay, I'm obviously going to need to train that. But now I should start thinking about the future, right? I should start thinking about just build a single train track that goes from an aluminium deposit down to where I'm going to build the factory. Build an actual like line system with like junctions and shit, just so that when I need to expand this for other resources, it'll be easy.
No, or
So I did that, and that does take a while if you're trying to be clean about it. I feel like it would still take a long time even if you weren't trying to be clean about it, because like obviously the way I'm doing it is each part of the train track is on top of a foundation which is aligned to the grid. So each segment of train track is, a straight line or a 45-degree angle curve and then a 45-degree line of track or whatever. But even if you weren't doing that, because of the way when you drag a track out, you click the start point and then you click the end point and it creates like the arc of the rail between that. So if you were trying to do two parallel tracks that weren't attached to a grid, like freeform, it would probably be quite hard to get them to stay spaced apart enough that the trains wouldn't collide with each other, basically. So I'm not sure building it off grid would actually make that any faster, basically.
Right.
It would still be kind of inconvenient that you'd have to be constantly
so the game
doing bits to make it keep spacing.
The game doesn't warn you then that like tracks are in even just next to each other proximity, like just too close.
No, because
it doesn't
like recognize the collision of the tracks at all, because that's how you make junctions. You just like run the tracks through each other into and out of the junction.
See.
So it doesn't actually care that, it doesn't care that the train tracks clip right through each other in any way, but then the trains do have collision. So you could build train tracks going all over the place and like vertically clipping through each other as well, like weird ramps. But you probably wouldn't want to, because then the trains would run into each other. Eventually, probably not for a while even. Just if you got lucky and they were never at the same place at the same time. But yeah, I made this whole nice, neat two-line train track that goes from where I built the aluminium factory all the way up into the hills to get the aluminium ore down. And then the actual process of making the aluminium is another ridiculous. This is where it's starting to get to like actually complicated things where it's like now you need 4 separate raw resources and like it's a 4-step process. Steps has like what is it called? I was going to say leftovers. That's not the right word. Byproducts. That's what I'm thinking of. Each step has like byproducts, and then like some of the byproducts you can feed back into subsequent steps or whatever. So
right, yeah,
that factory in itself is kind of complicated. Although weirdly, it's like it's a complicated like series of steps, but the actual output rate of those steps is like super high. So you kind of only need one of each factory in each of these 4 steps rather than the usual, 20 smelters or whatever. I mean, obviously, you'll probably need to scale those up later, obviously, as you start to use more of this stuff. But it's like a super high input and output rate where it's like this one singular factory is basically using this entire belt of stuff coming off this train. And then you get some nice fancy new tech on that tier as well, like the hover pack, so you can just hover in midair without having to use the jetpack fuel.
Just personally, like yourself.
Yeah, it's so you can basically build while looking down.
Right.
Which makes it way easier to see what you're doing. But the hover pack is, because the jetpack is fuel powered and, it doesn't hover, you just burn up and gravity, and you jiggle up and down as you let on or off the gas. And it's also very like a limited time. You basically can only fire the jetpack for so long before you have to land, and then it refills the fuel.
Right.
But whereas the hover pack is powered off the power grid, so as long as you stay vaguely close to anything in your base that's powered, the hover pack stays on. So you can't just use it while you're exploring. That's what the jetpack then becomes for.
I see. So
but
you
the
can
hover
only
pack
use
is
it
used for building stuff.
Right, when you're in your base. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're in the general vicinity of your base. Although that does start kind of get annoying when you're trying to build a new base, because then obviously you haven't built anything that has power there yet. So you kind of have to intentionally just run some power cables through the half-built factory just so you can have power.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense though.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, there's that. But then I haven't really got any further than that, because now that I've got to the point where it's like, okay, this aluminium factory requires 4 different resources, basically. It's like the aluminium ore, water, coal, quartz. And I found a place that had like it's the place I built the factory is like water and coal is right there. The aluminium was always going to come in from by train because it's miles away in the middle of the map, and the quartz is like not too far away, so I just built a little mini train route for that. But I'm getting to the point where all these future products that I'm looking to make, including like uranium for the nuclear power that's also coming up, is like I'm at the point where I'm feeling like I'm going to have to start completely rebuilding everything, because it's like each of these steps that uses more than like 2 or 3 resources. Because if it's only like, if something's only made of iron and copper, there's plenty of places on the map where there's iron and copper right next to each other. That's like, right. I'll just build the factory right there. But like now where it's like a lot of things need plastic and there's only so many different oil deposits spaced around the map, it seems like I probably need to be making essentially fully trained factories where it's just like the factory building is here, it has like 4 stations to bring in each of the 4 different raw resources, and then it goes through the factory and then it outputs onto another train that takes the finished product somewhere. But then that's going to require me to like basically demolish everything I built up to this point and build a whole extension to that start of a train network. So yeah, that's quite, it's that step of the game where it's like, this is quite intimidating, where it's like, if I want to do this in a decent way, it's going to be quite a lot of like undoing all the stuff I've already done and building it better.
And you don't have like,
of course.
I'm just thinking, because what you're describing is like coding.
Yeah,
do you have version control? Can you like create a branch and like work on that branch and then see if it's going well and then go back, and then if it, yeah.
Well, because everything is always, all the resources are infinite, so it doesn't matter if everything just continues to run in the background and just like, right. you can easily just make a factory that makes stuff and just dumps it, basically, because there's this building called the like awesome sink, where all it does is basically delete items and give
awesome
you
sink.
It deletes items and it gives you tickets that you then use to buy like basically factory cosmetic stuff like fancy wall textures and stuff. But that because it is a resource sink like that, you can easily use those to like get rid of byproducts. Or if you want to like half finish a factory, you can like use it to test run essentially, where it's just like you just dump everything that the factory is making into an awesome sink just to make sure everything's working. And it doesn't matter because all the resources are infinite anyway.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I've had Facebook ads for like an awesome sink.
Things in awesome sinks.
Yeah. It's weird.
Is that where all the shapes go in shapes? To the awesome sink?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's definitely, it's like, I want to try and do it in this fancy way, but I know for a fact you obviously don't have to, because if you just like, I watched the IGN review of Satisfactory, and the nightmare factory that they have in that video is just like, oh god. But they finished the game like that, so it's possible.
Right.
But it's just this horrible mess of just like random buildings and pipes and conveyors going everywhere and clipping through each other all over the place. It's like, okay, you guess that does technically work. Nothing's stopping you doing it like that.
So you don't have to have OCD to play it.
Yeah, I just prefer to do it a nicer way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got to approximately the same place in the multiplayer game as well.
Because isn't that like kind of the goal, is to look back and look at it and be like, oh, isn't it nice? Surely that IGN guy looks at it and goes, isn't this terrible?
Well, it's like, probably isn't this just like cool in a disaster way, where it's like, look at this goddamn mess I made.
Like a Rube Goldberg machine. That has its own appeal, doesn't it? I mean, yeah.
But the thing is that I guess it's another element of, because the resources are infinite and everything just runs forever, and also natural progression of the game kind of lets you stack, like previous components usually get used in the next tier of components or whatever. And that's kind of why that works at all, that messy style, because you can just be like, oh, this thing I was making before is now using this thing, so I'll just drag a belt straight over there.
Right.
Yeah, and we got to about the same point. We got to the aluminium point in the multiplayer game as well. So that will be where we experiment with the messy of this, or at least one of us will. I'll still attempt to build clean things because that's just what I do. And yeah, that's what's been going on in Satisfactory.
Any other games going on?
Yes, the other one that's new and it's kind of weird, which is why I definitely wanted to talk about it, was I started playing Teardown.
Teardown.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's a very weird game because, like, if you've seen footage or if you've read the name or if you've seen someone play the first level, you might think this is a game about demolishing shit.
Right.
But it's kind of not, which is really weird. So, like, its thing is, it's a voxel world, and like most stuff is destructible or whatever. Like, you can use explosives to blow holes through walls, and then if you destroy enough of the walls, it all collapses. And not really in a very physicsy kind of way. It's not like Red Faction or anything.
Right.
You can have an entire building that's held up by just like one piece of wall or whatever.
Right.
But so you might think that's what the game is about, but like it's kind of actually a game about, it's kind of really a heist game, I guess. It's mostly about stealing shit.
Planning your route in and then your route out.
Yeah. And also like probably I might say maybe half the time it's about driving.
Oh, really?
Right.
Huh.
Like there's vehicles, the levels aren't very big, but they're still vehicles, and you're either like stealing the vehicles, like putting them into a truck, and then that's what you need to escape with, or sometimes you're like destroying the vehicles, like missions where it's like you need to get these vehicles into the water for insurance fraud purposes, basically.
Okay.
But then sometimes it's just like you're just using the vehicles incidentally, because basically as soon as you trigger an alarm, you have 60 seconds to get all the shit you need and get out. So a lot of the time you're just using the vehicles as like to allow you to cover a distance faster than you can run. So you're like pre-parked cars facing in a certain direction. And be like, okay, you jump out of this car, you grab this thing, you jump in the next car, and then you drive forwards, and then you jump out of that car and you grab the next thing. Which is kind of weird. Also, none of the cars have alarms, obviously, and are all completely open to be used. So yeah, it's a kind of weird game of basically stealing shit in complicated ways.
That sounds kind of fun.
And the weird trick about it is the way the alarms work. Like, there's a fire alarm system where if you set shit on fire too much, then there's an alarm for that, but that's kind of irrelevant. Mainly because you just carry a fire extinguisher with you.
Oh.
So if you accidentally set anything on fire, you'd be like, "Oh, quick, put that out." But the main alarm is the alarm that triggers usually when you're getting the things you need to. But that alarm is usually in the form of basically there's an alarm box on the wall, and then there's a cable attached to the thing that you're trying to steal. And in the majority of cases, that means the thing you're trying to steal is basically immovable, because if you break the cable or if you break the box on the wall, that still triggers the alarm. And unfortunately, you can't do the cool thing that I thought of, just like, what if you just cut out the bit of wall that the alarm box is
move
attached
the whole
to?
thing, yeah.
But that doesn't work. That still triggers the alarm.
Aww.
It's just if the alarm box gets moved at all.
Oh, that's no fun.
So yeah, in that case, what you're trying to do is like clear out routes that allow you to, travel the straightest path between all the things that are attached to alarms, basically. And that's what the demolition comes into. There are a few cases where you can do slightly more fancy things. Like I just did a mission where there's a bunch of safes that you need to dunk in the water, and the safes aren't alarmed in the attached cable kind of way, but they have a sensor that detects when they get wet, basically. So as soon as you put one in the water, the alarm goes off.
A moist meter.
But also it's raining at the time as well. So then that mission was about basically you can, if you use like this dump truck and then like shove the safe into the dump truck undercover and then like lay planks onto the back of the dump truck to keep the rain from falling on it, then you can like put multiple safes in the back of this dump truck and then collect them all together before triggering any of the alarm. So I mean, you don't have to do as much running around during the 60 seconds you have during the alarm going off, which is kind of cool. I like that idea better than some of the, more straight versions of that, where it's just like, there's no way you can manipulate these alarmed objects. You just have to figure out a path that you can run within 60 seconds.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. It's nice when there's a trick that you can figure out.
So yeah, that's how that game generally works. There are occasionally levels where you do just have to demolish something, but they're kind of rare.
So how does it really work then? Like, so you can cut any holes, you can blow any stuff up, like just as long as you don't disturb the alarm.
There's no other alarms apart from the fire alarm and the attached alarms, and there's no people or anything. There's no one observing you. You're completely free to blow shit up as much as you want, as long as you don't accidentally hit any of the alarms.
So how does the game work? Like in terms of, like if you mess up basically and you want to rerun, do you have to start all the way from the beginning of setup? Like, so if you've done a whole bunch of like carving holes and stuff like that, then.
Well, you can quick save at any point.
Oh, okay,
so
that's nice.
Quick save after you've done all the like setup, but then sometimes you will just like.
It's just such an unusual feature these days. Like the quick save and quick load just don't seem to be too frequent.
The trouble is, of course, that there's only one, and like if you do a whole bunch of setup and then you try it, and it's like, oh, this route isn't actually going to work. Then sometimes you do kind of have to just reset the entire thing.
I can see that.
Also, because you have like limited, a limited amount of resources in all of your tools or whatever. Your blowtorch only lasts so many seconds, and you only have so many planks and so many explosives to work with. So if you've already used a bunch of them trying one thing, you're like, oh, I might not have enough to try this other thing. But yeah. And it's like it's still kind of weird to me that there is no people, or at least as far as I've got, I guess maybe it will change, but there's no people at all. But like the second main demolition tool you get is a shotgun. But for some reason, shotguns are really good at breaking walls.
Okay.
Like your basic tool is like a sledgehammer, and the sledgehammer can't get through a brick wall, but a shotgun totally can.
What? That's literally what sledgehammers are for, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's quite funny. I like that.
I mean, I know they have door breach shotguns, right? But that's to shoot out the hinges or the locks, not the door. Yeah.
Well, in this game, that's what the blowtorch is for. You just blowtorch away the precise voxels where the lock is, and then the door's just open.
Nice.
You don't even have to cut the entire door out or anything, which is actually kind of cool. It's like they did actually. Yeah. It does actually realize that that's one time I tried doing it the other way as well, and like blowtorch the hinges instead, where it's like, and then it like partially rotates around the lock. It's like, oh yeah, they actually did really think of that. And you can just cut a hole straight through, if there's a metal, garage door or whatever, just cut a hole straight through that with a blowtorch if you want. Although I did get fooled by that a couple of times, because in a lot of the levels where there are garage doors like that, they often are like motion sensitive to cars. Like if you walk up to them, they won't open, but if you drive a car up to them, they will open.
You don't need to cut through them half the time.
But then presumably, cut through them.
Then presumably you have to weigh up whether you need to wait for whether waiting for them is a good idea.
Yes. It is way faster to just completely demolish the door instead of waiting for it to open if you need to drive fast through that bit.
Well, how effective is just driving through it?
Well, because the doors open quite... Well, I guess you mean like drive the car for it. I suppose that depends on like what kind of car.
Okay.
A lot of the fast types of cars, like sports cars or whatever, don't have much, impact resistance. But if you want to drive a dump truck for it, you probably can. Drive a digger straight through the side of a building. That's actually what I did in one of the early missions before I had much access to explosives. I was like, I need to get rid of this entire wall, but that's more than I can do with my shotgun, and the sledgehammer won't do it. I'll just drive this digger straight into it.
And it worked?
And that worked totally fine.
Nice.
Presumably if you've got a digger, you could just dig away most of the level. And then...
It doesn't really work like that. Like the digger, the like bucket part doesn't manipulate, the voxels at all. It's just another chunk of metal, basically.
Sure,
it's just another piece of the structure to absorb damage.
Just take time, reverse, forwards. There goes that bit of level. Just demolish as much of it as you can. Then your straight line is there.
But yeah, that really is what that game is about. It's about that 60-second run where you've done all the setup and then you just have to execute, which is where the quick save definitely comes in. Because you know, sometimes you'll just be like, "Oh, I bollocksed up my movement there, and I got stuck on that step for a second longer than I needed to." Almost speedrunning in some ways. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how far through that game I am at all. I keep unlocking new ridiculous things where it's like, now I just have a rocket launcher.
Excellent. Sounds like they know what you want, though. You know, it's like, oh, how do I blow this up more
but you don't get that much opportunity to use them in that kind of like crazy way that you would in a GTA or whatever. You don't get like a kill frenzy level or anything. I mean, like I said, the ones where it is about demolition are kind of rare. I've only done like 2 or 3 of those out of the 20 odd levels that I played, I guess.
Hopefully, it's still quite satisfying just to fire the rocket launcher and then see stuff explode.
Well, sure, and it was like, I think I got that rocket launcher just before the mission where I had to get the safes in the water, and I was like, oh, I don't even have to move one of these safes because I can just shoot a rocket into the building from far away, and then the safe will just fall out into the water. That will save me having to run all the way over there. So yeah, that's Teardown. It's quite weird. Not exactly what you might expect by the general concept of what you think that game might be about.
Sounds kind of cool, though.
Not super much about tearing things down.
Do you reckon someone will just do that? They'll just make Power Wash Simulator, but it's like Demolition Simulator.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of like mods. Well, I say there's mods, but like the mods are obviously also like levels. So I expect the community has like, here's just a thing to blow up kind of levels.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe some sharks or something.
One of those things. I wonder how much depth there is in reality to like the Red Faction destroy this building mode, right? Because there was some challenge to that to an extent.
Yeah,
in Red Faction, especially if you wanted like.
I mean,
that's
why that game. It's like that game is why, because it had that. Because it did try and do some actual physics simulation, right? That's why that was actually interesting in that game. There was a technique to making an entire building fall down if you knew like what were the structurally supportive parts.
Yeah, you actually had to find weak points. And get rid of them.
Whereas obviously in this, that doesn't have that.
Yeah, I just wonder if that if a game like that has legs, like as that's the game, and didn't have to be necessarily hamstrung with the rest of Red Faction.
I mean, it might do. You'd have to make it quite a lot of scenarios.
Yeah, and somehow make it enough of a puzzle.
Well, I mean, that would be like you'd obviously be restricting like ammo and tools, like how Red Faction did in its multiplayer mode.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Teardown. And then I guess I played somewhere out of Deep Rock. Rocktoberfest.
Yep.
Go get in there and get your dumb hat, which is like a tuber with some sausages sticking out of it.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah, not much going on in Deep Rock apart from that. I'm still working my way through the season, obviously, slowly. I've now once again finished all of the Matrix cores. So like now when I do a machine event and get a Matrix core, it's just materials, not actually new stuff.
Right, I see.
Haven't still got all the unlocks from like the crates or whatever. I'm still missing those ones that I never had that the game thought I had, but now the game knows that I don't have again. Plus some new ones are in that pool as well. Like the ones where it's just the stock weapon but has like a dangly dice on the front.
Okay. Never seen those. Never knew they existed.
They're new this season.
I think it's your turn, Rob.
Oh. Yep. Should I circle back round to some Splatoon for a hot second?
What do you want to say about it?
Well, I've got side order.
Oh right.
Yeah, I went and picked up the DLC. Because it actually went on sale. Would you believe? Like a bit of DLC went on sale. How about that? So I've been playing a little bit of Side Order. It's pretty good, but I don't. It's one of those things where like I can see what they were going for, but and I can see how the format of a roguelike Splatoon / Salmon run type thing could function. I just don't really think there's enough here. It's. I don't think the setups are quite wild enough, and I don't think the what you can end up doing with your build is quite wild enough, or at least I haven't experienced it that way just yet. The basic flow is it's like you start at the bottom of this tower. The tower has 30 floors. Get to the top, plus. And then once you get to the top, do it with all the weapon sets, plus. And those other weapon sets will unlock as you go through. Yada yada yada. You need to find things in the tower to get the other weapon sets, and to get your keys, and then you can unlock this like abandoned locker set. It's feeling very Yakuza at that point. And inside those lockers might be weapon sets. But yeah, you play a level, and those levels tend to be there can be one of three things. I think it's only three. No, there's four. So there aren't many like level types. Is kind of problem number one. So so objective number one is kill the enemy spawners. Make sure you go get them all, and then the level ends. Objective 2 is one straight out of Octo expansion and the campaign, I suppose, for Splatoon 3, which is push these 8 balls into their holes, put things in holes.
Classic.
Yep, an absolute classic. They've made it, but they've made those a bit more lenient now, as in you can't really push the balls off the level on those occasions where that was a problem in the main levels. That would be a lose condition, I suppose, in the other levels. But yeah, not a problem here. Number 3, basically play a variant of the there's like a to capture the tower mode that's in like the competitive Splatoon thing where you have to stand on a tower, have to have control of a tower, and while you're in control of it, it moves through the level. It's a bit like that here, but instead of you being in control of it and having to stand on it, you need to just shoot it, and so it's got enough juice in it, and while it's got enough juice in it, it will move along this track. So you basically just have to push that all the way to the end. Oh, what else we got? We've got some zone control, which is basically exactly like the competitive mode. There'll be 1 or 2 areas on the map that you need to keep in your control to keep the tickets counting down. Otherwise, they tick back up again. Try and get that number down at 0. Good luck. I think that's it. I think that's all the modes that I can think of. But that's kind of it in terms of the levels. They always. Oh no, the 5th one is there's these fish-like things that are on rapid wheels. Go kill those guys. There you go. Not too interesting, but they just move around the level real fast. And there's sometimes a trick to getting them. But yeah, those are always the objectives, and I haven't seen. It doesn't feel at this point in my playing it, and I'll be honest, I haven't played it a huge amount, but that there's a huge amount of variation in the levels on which those objectives appear. I don't necessarily feel like I've seen all that many interesting variants. Like you'll often see the same layout arena, but the objectives will, each one of the objectives could be on any one of the play areas, I guess. There's been the odd exception to that where there's been some setup that's kind of gimmicky, I suppose, where it's still one of the same objectives, but we've put enemies and stuff on this level, so you have to do it in a weird way. And those are kind of interesting. For example, all of the enemies in this, they're like salmon run adjacent, and that they'll just basically charge you down, and that's how they kill you. But they're not the salmons. The salmon. They are this new enemy type that are like skeletal fish things, and right. like one of them sort of becomes a sort of spinning top once you've killed it, and then you can kick it basically, and it starts spinning away from you, taking out anything in its path. And one of the levels has the spawner up a surface you can't climb. But there's bounce pads in front of it. So it's like, solution. I need to get those spinny guys and when they spawn and then kick them up the bounce pad so they destroy the spawner on their way. So, right. There's a few variants here and there, but like I haven't come across anything completely mind-blowing and interesting. Like, it doesn't feel like there's as much creativity gone into this as, say, Octo expansion, right? Which then... for Splatoon 2, which then fed how the campaign in Splatoon 3 functioned. So then I suppose it's a roguelike. So you need to talk about like how you're upgrading yourself, but it's like often quite normal things like make your shots go further, make your shots more powerful, but only at close range. Make your shots more powerful, but only at long range. Make jumping out of the ink do damage to stuff. You have a little drone following you around, and it's like, how often do they use their weapons, and what weapons do you give it, and stuff like that. And it's been tempting thus far to basically just do drone runs, because that's kind of fun, right? You just have your little buddy just randomly crap out stuff, or fire super weapons essentially periodically just on its own, and it's like, that's kind of fun. But I haven't actually yet finished a run. I've got close to finishing one, but I haven't managed it yet. Fortunately, the weapon set you start with is the dualies, so that's probably the most fun one to start with, I bet.
Yeah, probably.
Because I'm not entirely sure how it's going to work with things like the sniper rifles. It's like, how is...
Well, I mean, that was always the case with like when you had to do... Well, you didn't have to. When you did the like single gun runs in 2 or...
Splatoon 1, right? You could pick
and 1 as well.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. It was the first 2. The main campaigns in the first 2. Yeah, you could take any weapon set in, right? And some of the levels had to adjust to cope.
Or they didn't adjust.
Or they didn't
they
adjust.
Still worked.
And then they were tricky, yeah. So I don't quite know how some of that's going to function just yet. But yeah, I was looking for something like some weirder abilities, some like stuff that isn't necessarily just building on the platform that Splatoon already has, like so a bit more uniqueness to it.
Well, I mean, it feels like the way that they've locked it, or they just started by locking it to one weapon, almost is limiting it in itself. Where it's just like, wouldn't it be cooler if you could if somehow the weapons could be swapped out or combined?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there are some oddities that affect that as you go. Like perhaps you start with a weapon and you have to pick what. Yeah, well, it's random what weapon you get assigned based on what you unlock as you go. Something like that. As usual, it needs more and more random.
Yeah.
And given how little I've played of it already, I'm already getting that feeling that's just how this is. I just don't necessarily think it can reach the lofty heights. Nothing's quite hit Gungeon level, right? That's the for me that's the zenith. Like nothing's quite matched that. Again, with what little I've played of that, but you can tell immediately. Actually, no, the zenith is probably Binding of Isaac, right, or one of those, for just sheer quantity of stuff that can happen. So that's probably all I've got to say about Sidor at the moment. I'm not done with it. I'll come back to it. I'll play a bit more of it, for sure. And maybe go check out Inkopolis Plaza, right? Because that's the other part of the DLC. You can just randomly replace Splatsville with one of the old locations if you don't like it as your hub world. So there's that. I finished Kunitsugami, or at least I got through its main story anyway. I didn't unlock absolutely everything the game had to offer. I got back into it, basically, was what I was saying. And also, I need to corrections column myself a little bit here. I think one of my major complaints about the game I mentioned last time was that the loop of the levels was quite lengthy, right? And if you failed the level, you're basically having to probably restart the whole level. Turns out that's completely untrue. I just found the menu system quite confusing for how it explained that.
Oh.
So, like, when you die during one of the night sequences, the options presented to you are continue, load game, and restart. And the tooltip under continue says restart from your last save. And at no point does this game ever tell you that it's basically auto-saving to a certain degree. So I immediately read that and thought, oh, well, that's going to just drop me back to my last manual save, which is outside of the level. So I had no idea that was a thing. But what it actually does, if you pay a little bit more attention and look at that tooltip, it actually will tell you where in the current level it last saved. So it will sort of say day 2 or something, or night 2, as to where the save actually is. And it will normally be between the last day-night transition. Because it'd be pretty hard to die during the day, right? So it's almost always going to be a night transition. Thing that doesn't, and which actually solves the problem I had. Is I've done on some levels where there is really nothing you can do other than prepare in one specific way. It's I've done that, so night. I don't need to do all that again. I could just play the night sequence and then just click the continue button. You'll be fine. I was a total idiot. I've wasted so much time not knowing that's what that does, and it's just because that wording of load your last save.
Yeah.
Ugh. Unfortunate. So I take that back. But I have got an additional criticism, and that is that the last main level is basically just a boss rush, and it's of every single boss bar 2, I think, is how that works. So it was quite a long slog getting through it, and it's while the bosses are kind of fun, I don't know, that just felt a bit lazy. They don't even try to necessarily make it so you're fighting them in a different arena or that they're different in some way. They were just the same bosses you fought earlier. Do it again, but all in one run, and it's that was kind of tedious. Actually, it's I have no beef with the bosses. I'm just not into boss rush modes, I think. And I kind of was thinking about that a little bit, and it's yeah, but I kind of forgive Rez, even though the last level is kind of a boss rush. To an extent. But they're variations. They're not quite the same boss. Yeah, anyway, so that was a bit of a bummer. And the last fight was kind of meh as well. It was okay. It was definitely a tougher last boss than the other ones. There's a bit more going on. It just sort of seemingly had moments where it would, again, I think some of the problems I had with the other bosses, that unless you're just being quick, there were just certain attacks that just seemingly just killed the goddess. And it's just what was I supposed to do there? Was there actually a tactic I could have done to avoid that scenario? And to be honest, I never figured out whether there was. My tactic was always just kill it faster. So it never, and just hope it doesn't get to doing that attack. Which did eventually work.
Okay.
Just kill it faster. Yeah, but I generally do like the cut of this game's vibe. Cut of its jib.
What's
What's the actual phrase? I don't know. It is jib. That sounds wrong. But
Jib.
Gib.
G-I-B. J-I-B. Jib.
Jib. Cut of its jib. Yeah, I generally do like what it's selling here, in terms of its style and its what the game even is, and the quality of the presentation, and especially the music. The music's pretty great. I would be kind of interested in perhaps if I was to play a bit more of this. There's basically some options that are unlocked right from the very start. That if you want, you can have the music from Okami instead. If you want, it's just in there. It's oh, would you prefer So to look a little bit more like Amaterasu, here you go, just flip a switch. Yeah, do you want to try the other music? Yeah, sure, go for it. Have music from Okami instead. So that might be kind of fun. And there is a new game plus mode, which I'm assuming is intended to mean you can take all your Musubi with you. Remember the currency that I mentioned? That's all about your upgrade currency, essentially. Take all your Musubi with you into another playthrough in the hope that you could perhaps max out the Masubi. I'm not, because there's quite a lot of that I haven't got. I've put it all into the minions, the villagers and stuff, and their abilities, and I didn't really put too much into myself as a character. So it's there's quite a lot I could still learn, and I don't know if it's 100% possible to do it by just completing every objective and every optional objective on every level. I don't know if it's possible to max out your character without New Game Plus. Feels like you might be a little short. But I think I'm done with it, honestly. I did the thing where I've beat it, and now I'm a little bit like, yep, cool, done that. I haven't really gone back to it since credits rolled. But I do like that game. I think it's cool. It's nice. Weird Capcom, as I've said before. Weird Capcom is cool. God, I don't know if you can hit. I don't know if that will pick up on the result. But Milesy is screaming the house down.
Not keen on Weird Capcom.
He's not keen on Weird Capcom, no. I think the drums woke him up too much. Like dum 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 dum. What else have I been doing? I don't know why, but I've ended up playing far more than I ever expected of Star Trucker. And I don't.
Okay. I mean, it's meant to be that kind of. It's like Euro Truck Simulator in space, right?
Kinda, yeah. There's almost nothing here more than what I had played at EGX, which is pick up trailer, drive to place, drop trailer, and then drive somewhere else, and then maintain your truck on the way and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of. I've played this thing for like over 6 hours, and that's kind of all I've done. Like, it's just drive to place, drop off trailer. It's like, oh crap, I'm running out of batteries. I need to go and buy some batteries from somewhere. Oh crap, I've run out of money. Or I'm on the brink of running out of cash. I need to do another job so I can pay for fuel to do more jobs. Like, it's one of those, right? The balancing act between doing jobs and keeping your truck running and having enough resource to maintain all of that. And it's I don't know, it was a bit too maintenance heavy right at the very start, and then sort of got into a bit of a flow with it where I don't really feel like I'm earning particularly. I'm just sort of staying stable. Which is sort of part of the problem, because the game doesn't really progress particularly quickly. There are certain like time limits or on some of the actual sort of like, they call them the side jobs, but they're effectively the story of the game. And I use the term story incredibly loosely because there really hasn't been any thus far. Just trucker stuff, do a job, have people go 10-4 at you, do a random quiz about the music of the game over the radio. That was a slightly weird one. Yeah, there really hasn't been, and it's sometimes a bit of a pain in the ass to get to, because you don't necessarily want to go to a place without doing a job to get to that place. Otherwise, you're wasting time and money. So it's then you have to try and like queue up a job to make. Okay, now I can go there. Great, I've got a job to actually go there. Let's go do that, and let's go do this side thing. So it's very, 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 very slow, just like your truck. And yet somehow I can't put it down. I don't understand.
Yeah, how have they made it compelling then? What have they done?
I don't know. Maybe it's just because it is just such a turn my brain off thing. I've been playing it like as last thing at night mostly, and like maybe it's one of those. Maybe it's just like just I'm just chilling, just driving this truck around. I'm not even really putting music on. I think it has got an in-game radio, but it doesn't have a very large selection of tracks, it seems. So I'm like, I turn that on. Like, it's just being the weird space hum of the truck. Whoa, 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 whoa. And yeah, I don't know. It's even got like a couple of pretty nasty flaws in places. Like, I don't know. I did one job type which is described as a just-in-time job, and all that really means is that there's a very specific delivery window in which you need to deliver your crate to. The only problem is that delivery window, you can't be early. either. Like you have to be within this specific block of time. Problem is, if you are early, it's a real pain in the ass because you don't have many options. Like, so when you do a jump between systems, there's some time dilation that goes on, right? It takes time to go through a jump, but not for you as a player. So like, if I jump between these systems, you can see on the map how long jumps take. So it's like, if I jump between these systems, it will burn an hour of time. But I can't go to another system and come back because that's going to burn a full 2 hours, and all I need is about half an hour. How on earth am I going to do this? I'll sit and wait.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. I dropped my trailer somewhere. I parked up somewhere where there's free energy, which is pretty much anywhere, and got the Steam Deck out. And just let the game run for about half an hour. And it's okay, this seems like a flaw. Like there just needs
somewhat.
There just needs to be a way to just like accelerate time, please. I know that like the game is trying to get you to like plan your route, I suppose, and it even says in like the in-game manual a little bit to be like, try and optimize it so you do your maintenance and stuff if you're on the way, so you don't arrive early, but also make sure you don't arrive late. It's all about planning, and I'm like, fuck this shit. It wasn't a good solution. Like I did check in on the forums and like, is there a way to do this? And their basic advice was just be late. Just do a couple of jumps, like take the penalty for being late. It's like
because it's not worth your own time in the real world.
Time. Just avoid that job type, and it's like okay, that seems ill thought through. Honestly, I've got no idea like how much I'll actually continue to stick with this. Like even as I'm saying it right now, there's a bit in my head going like, I could just drive that truck a bit more. It's baffling to me. It really is.
I didn't think you'd be playing Star Tracker. I don't know. That's great.
We just turned up on Game Pass, and a bit of me was like, let's check this out. Let's see what it's like.
Well, I was thinking about playing it as well, but I didn't get around to it.
I'm sure you will at some point, Zach, right?
Possibly, yeah.
It's pretty chill. I'll give it that. It's pretty chill.
It's got me precisely 0 points in the league.
So it's a perfect 70, is it?
It's a perfect 70, yeah.
That seems fair. It feels like a swimming in sevens. So there's that. And lest I'm forgetting anything, which I probably am, as usual, one other thing I have incredibly briefly dabbled with, and that's maybe all I do with it, is Riders Republic. Because that turned up on Game Pass as well.
Riders Republic.
So Riders Republic is the kind of open world Ubisoft extreme sports game, like snowboarding and biking
on a giant mountain, is it?
Yeah, it's in Yosemite Park.
Okay.
Not the other one that's on the giant mountain, whatever that was called.
Yeah, something else. That was more snowy, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. What was Steep?
Sounds right.
Yeah. So
that seemed bad. But I don't know about this.
That was like the tech demo for this game, basically.
Well, kinda, yeah. So it's got snowboarding in it, and it's got
Is it Nickelodeon's Rocket Power, the game?
On some level, actually, yes. I don't like this thing. As I sort of alluded to in my sort of like, I don't know how much time I will give it because I don't even know where to begin. Okay, number one thing I noticed, first off the bat, like, let's just do this chronologically, I suppose, as I encountered it. Straight off the bat, the first thing I noticed was the HDR calibration on it seems utterly busted. Or at least it does in my setup. Your mileage will vary. So the whole thing looks very kind of dark and washed out and grey, like you're watching like BBC HDR content, but you haven't turned your TV into the right mode, so it looks right. It's like it just looks off and weird, which is really bizarre. Like, why would a Ubisoft game not like a triple A developer title that's had like, it says very quite proudly on the startup sequence a Ubisoft original, and then lists off a few like cities that I assume are all the development teams that worked on this thing.
Because it's Ubisoft.
And not get the HDR right. That seems kind of confusing. Or maybe it's just a calibration problem. I really don't know. I mean, I did have problems with Kunitsugami with some of the text reading, but the actual game looked fine. So I don't know quite what's going on there. So that was point number one. Point number two is it is very much trying to do the Forza Horizon vibe. Do you know what I mean? Or the Crew, I suppose, would be the Ubisoft equivalent. That it's just like, hey, welcome, come to this festival, do some stuff, do whatever you want, man. It's all good. Although I will say that its level of cheese and cringe on its talking characters is much lower than Forza Horizon. Right. So that's actually a positive. I'll give them a point for that.
I mean, we talked about it before, but I find that extremely off-putting, that stuff in Forza Horizon.
Understandably, it is one of the worst elements of that game. Which, by the way, by the time you're hearing this, it's probably too late to buy Forza Horizon 4. It's like going out of off the Xbox store, and I don't believe it's discounted on Steam either. I think it's only through the Microsoft store. There's like an 80% discount on all versions of Forza Horizon 4, which I might pick up because it's got the Lego pack in it, and the Lego pack might be fun. So the next thing it makes you, the onboarding process in this thing is dog shit. Like, it is a barrage, like a bombardment.
Absolute bombardment. Catharticals.
It just absolutely just stops the action and just puts a screen up that says, oh, by the way, you can do this, 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 and this. And then a couple of seconds later, oh, by the way, you'll need these currencies, and they do this, 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 and this. And then, oh, and by the way, you can do this stuff, this stuff, this stuff. Also, this season's on. Actually, that was the first thing it displayed was, by the way, it's fall season. So here's some stuff, I guess, that you could potentially not do. I'll come back to that because that was quite irritating. So the amount of just on-screen stuff that just gets in the way of you actually playing the game is enormous. Loads of it, and they're all just static, 3-panel, almost comic strip. Here's a thing, here's a thing, here's a thing. Presented in the same way. No real care taken to try and explain them in an interesting way or give them to you at the right moment. It's all just here you go, here's a bunch of stuff. And then the game just drops you in the hub, and I'm like, all right, what do I do now? I don't actually know what to do. What do I do? I guess I bring up the map and just go to an event, which you kind of sort of can do, and you do. But I guess what it tries to guide you to do is it calls the different sports careers, basically. So you're I want to do downhill biking. So you go find the career intro on the map for downhill biking, and you go do that, and it's cool, now that's going to open up another. I've done that first event, it's going to open up another thing. What I actually did was find a random, I guess it was a weekly challenge from Prada. Was it Prada? I don't even know. Where you're on where the world is for some reason becomes all neonified, and you're racing these hoverboards across snow, and I'm like, what am I even doing right now? It was really, really weird, and it's okay, I guess this is content for people that have been playing the game for some kind of special event or something. I don't really know. Let's just go to the downhill biking. Let's do that. The downhill biking's fine. It's it doesn't. I don't think it handles particularly amazingly, but it's fine. It's it starts, and during that introduction, it starts suggesting a few things with pauses, as you might expect. Again, to be by the way, you're not really trying to do sick jumps here. You're trying to keep your race speed up. So avoid jumping. Here's how the sprinting works. Blah 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 blah. And like I said, it's fine. It doesn't feel particularly interesting. It's quite casual, is how I would describe it. There's some assist settings you can play with to adjust how the game will assist your landing and things for tricks and stuff, and maybe it'll be more interesting if I start turning those off. So I need to actually orientate my landings properly, because at the moment I don't appear to have to. But then if you're downhill biking, you're not really doing tricks or worrying about that. So it's I don't know what the deal is here. But they seem okay. I then went off to another career thing because I found something that was like talking about BMXing. And I get there and I go talk to the person. It's like, oh, that's DLC. Ah, right. So the map, quite a lot of the elements on my map at the moment are DLC things I can't do. And it's kind of like subtle how it's actually displayed. Like you have to read the flavor text for the event, and it will say there, oh, this is you can come do this intro, or and it's available to buy from the store. And it's like, but it's only in the flavor text for the event that's what it is. And it's like, okay, fuck, right, that was a wasted journey. Let's what do I go do next? Let's go do the random wingsuit stuff, which is, I don't know, that's okay. It's like it's the easiest way to get around the map, but it's just you have it's basically you in a jetpack flying around through rings. And as far as I can tell, there isn't really any more nuance than that. You're just pointing camera where you want to go. And I think that's my biggest problem with this so far, is like I don't feel any depth in anything I'm doing. In it, like in any sense of the control or any sense of how to actually play it, at no point have I felt, there's something to this. I just need to get better at it. I just haven't had that experience with it. It's just like, no, this is pretty bland.
What's going on with Ubisoft? It's not going well for them, is it?
No,
it's no. They seem to have lost the people that make like the games fun.
Yeah. So I've tried the game's like marquee feature, which is the mass race, right? That was the thing that looked most fun to me, I guess, when you say the thing. And those are like, they are massively multiplayer races where there's like loads of people in it, and it's just a whole crowd of people basically like just charging their way through this course. And they probably take the right approach here by making it like not impossible and making like collisions very weak. So like they'll nudge you from side to side, but I guess to deal with latency and lag and other people's stupidity, they're not super unfair on you. Or like push you a little bit from side to side, but that just makes it feel like, where's the danger here? Where's the madness? Actually, it's just another race. There's just a lot of people here. And they're often like multidiscipline events. So you'll go through these like transformation points, and then you'll suddenly have a snowboard rather than a bike, say, or a snowmobile or something like that. And it's a way of playing some of the DLC stuff as well, which I think they lock behind stuff called toys. And it's so, you know, I did one where I was on a rocket sled at one point that was incredibly hard to control. And also not much fun. It just seems to be my biggest problem with this whole thing. It's just like they forgot the fun.
Yeah, they missed out the fun part.
It's what a weird thing it is. It's like I might give it a second shot, but just to ram home my suspicions, I suppose, torture myself with. But I just don't get it. Like, even with the sort of like there are skate parks, and I think skateboarding is behind DLC as well. But like, I just don't see how when you're doing like the bowls and stuff, like when you're trying to pull off. There's bike trick mode separate from BMXing. I should point that out. There is bike trick mode, and the trick system there just doesn't feel good. It's like, did they not play Tony Hawk's? like that's how you do these things, and it just, or even skate, something like that, and it's. What a weird thing. Yeah, you can skip it.
It's not the Riders Republic. It's time for Empire.
You can skip it. And I think that's me.
Cool. Right, well, I've just been playing Zelda. It's the Eternal Zelda. No, Zelda for days.
Not
Zelda
Echoes
forever.
of Wisdom, we should point out.
No, not the new one. No. I've got plenty of old Zelda to play before I get to that. Although I did play Link's Awakening, the remake, so maybe it is Echoes of Wisdom will be up my street.
I did notice in some review footage I saw of Echoes of Wisdom that mysteriously wasn't pointed out that it does still look quite framey in places. Yeah,
apparently it's almost actually worse in places.
Oh, really?
So that might be one for a Switch 2 upgrade.
Yeah, wait for Switch 2.
Yeah, potentially. Although I'm sure,
Or you could emulate it. Oh, no, wait.
Oh, no, wait. Yeah. Where are you in Tears of the Kingdom? You played like 200 hours of it. When did you get time to do all that? Is that Rob?
Way before.
It was when Wazzy was little, so there was a lot of he couldn't do anything.
Okay.
You didn't have.
And you had paternity, I guess, right? So,
yeah, there was a bit of that.
Okay,
so
that makes sense. Okay,
yeah, I played a bunch of it then,
running around in caves, finding bubble frogs.
Yeah, where am I at? I mean, like any Zelda game, I'm at the point where I could just finish it if I wanted.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as I know, at least I'm at the point where I'm supposed to go to the end.
Right. So you've done the game basically.
Yeah. Okay, but there's still like there's just and maybe this is what maybe this is what's preventing me from going back to it a little bit, because I know there's a couple of things that I kind of want to do, and I probably should do, because they feel like gateways to other things. I think it's a bit overboard
on the. I mean, it's great for Zach, but I think it's a bit overboard on the kind of collect them up in this one. It's like I found the quest, which is like find all the wells. There are 200. You have found 9. It's like, oh great.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Or find every single cave and then get every single one of those frog dudes in it.
Bubble frog things.
Bubble frogs. Yeah.
I mean that doesn't really matter though. I mean, it's just because it's giving you a quest. It's just the same as finding every Korok.
Yeah, it is.
You would never do that. And I never did that, even in the original, obviously.
Did you not find every Korok? I thought you did.
No, there's way too many. I found enough to get full inventory, which is like half of them.
Right.
I see.
And there is at least.
Then in the DLC gave you the hat that gives you the detector, so that helps. Yeah.
And there is at least a point with the bubble frogs, right, where that same thing happens, right? You don't need.
Yes, you don't get any more rewards. It's just the completion goal. And then obviously the completion goal doesn't give you anything actually interesting. It gives you a trophy.
So I'm in the last area though. Is like not the last area, but like I hadn't done the desert at all. So I've struck out into the desert. So I found the lightning temple. So it's the last temple.
Okay.
Of the 4 or whatever, I guess, to do. So I'm doing that now. So yeah. It's cool. It's Zelda.
Yeah, I should probably just finish it. I never finished like Breath of the Wild
you never
either.
Finished Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
and you never even got to play the DLC either.
No.
I haven't actually got like upgrades for any real armor, like from the fairies particularly. I haven't done the thing of like, well, what's the armor I actually want to use, when fighting, and then get that upgraded.
Sure, not that any,
I think I need to.
Not that any armor really shares too much, I suppose.
Yeah, I know. And then it's like, and the ingredients you need are like usually like dragon scales or something. That it's like,
some of them are pretty tough.
Yeah,
and not all that frequent stuff. Quite grindy.
So I've got a list of open side quests of like, this one you need to kill a Lionel, and this one you need to kill a Multilo or whatever, and this one you need to get a scale from a dragon, and it's like all this like hardcore stuff, and it's like, okay, I'll get there at some point.
Well, I mean, I'm sure the basic armor can't be that complicated. That's probably Lionel's though, right? I guess the soldier armor.
Yeah, I guess soldier armor. I've managed to get the Fierce Deity set, which is attack power up, which seems like good, although it gives you creepy white eyes, but otherwise it looks fine. But I think that needs some
I don't think I've
serious stuff to upgrade.
It's basically like you just want the barbarian armor again if you want to attack up. Go back to that.
Yeah, it's the same as a barbarian armor, I think, the Fierce Deity. Well, I mean, the same stat. Yeah, same stat bonus. And that seems like what you'd generally want when fighting. I think deal more damage. Get it over with quicker.
Yeah, I don't think I've maxed out any of the sets, but I was just upgrading anything that I could. Really, I don't necessarily. I think I've mostly been soldiering. I was wearing the high roll gear for ages as well, actually, because you could get that upgraded quite easily.
Can get that. Yes, that's quite cheap, and it is just generic level armor.
Yeah,
I totally failed to use the horse drawing the logs down to the village. That did not work.
Oh, okay.
I ended up just there aren't logs very actually even that far away, so I ended up just taping them together and then rolling them down the hill basically.
Yeah.
That actually worked better.
That's the thing I want to do next. Actually, is that I think, because I never rebuilt the village either.
Oh, it's quite cool to do that because you get the materials and then you have to help build, but the payoff is quite good because you get like an inn that you can restore your health at is free.
Oh, nice.
And
okay.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
A few other things.
But I never did like Tarrytown in Breath of the Wild either. So this is like this is like the second this is like the second thing for me where it's just like like the quest line in which something gets built. I haven't done that.
I think Lurelin Village is now the nicest place to hang out because Kakariko's a bit ruined by crap everywhere in this one, and Hatano's got all the insane people with the crazy clothes all in this one.
Still quite nice place.
Yeah, it's all nice.
And that's where you need to go to get your singular item farm.
Right, I did get the farm. Yeah, I chose to.
Oh, I didn't do that.
Grow some pumpkins. I got some pumpkins.
That's for finishing the classroom, isn't it?
Yeah,
the classroom. Yeah, it's next to the school. So I've done that. So I'll get my lightning temple done and then figure out. I've got like 92 shrines. There's like 180 or something, isn't there? Something
it's like 152. I think
152. Okay. Well, I'm making some progress anyway, but it's a big ass game, and there's a lot of fucking giant monsters and Lionels and things to get good enough to actually fight if you're gonna get through it. All those big I've never gone near any of those big Gleok dragons or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, some of those are a pain.
So it's just so much. But I think better to play Zelda than most other things.
Technically, yes.
Yes.
Just looking at ratings.
That is a fair assessment.
But also in terms of what I like, probably.
Sure.
Well, you didn't play Riders Republic, so this is the correct strategy.
Well. I just do some shield surfing. I'd be pretty much there. I haven't done any shield surfing either. That's another thing I haven't done in Tears of the Kingdom.
I don't think there's any need to here.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
I've done the freaking diving. That's an extreme sport. Diving off the top of the world or whatever and through a bunch of rings.
Oh, yeah,
and I absolutely face planted, but I had a fairy, so I didn't die.
Yeah, I've done that a few times. Quite funny.
Yeah. Zelda. It remains Zelda. I probably will continue to for a while. What will the next game I play actually be? Probably Civilization 7 sometime next year.
Do you think that Nintendo, when they do eventually talk about Switch 2, that they'll do what they've been sort of demoing behind the scenes, which is Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom running at 60?
Obviously, I wish that they do that with pretty much everything, but I don't know if they will. They don't have a track record of doing that.
No, they really don't.
We already talked about this on a podcast like 2 podcasts ago.
Yeah, I know.
If not sooner.
But that would be a big reason to buy the Switch 2 would be if, ideally, day one, you got patches for existing back compat stuff that made it run nicely.
They'll probably try and pull a Sony, right, and do like just DX, but like they'll do their thing of like slap DX on the end of it, and it's like, oh, actually, this is a remaster. I think Nintendo might start going down that route a little more.
I mean, I would buy Breath of the Wild again if it had certain, quality of life stuff actually changed in it.
Right, if they perhaps backported some stuff from Tears.
A few minor things. And I get annoyed by the combat music in Breath of the Wild, so I find the Tears of the Kingdom one is better. Anyway, that's games. And that's a podcast.
That's a podcast.
Thank you for joining us. We have a YouTube channel as well, which you can check out. Got some videos on there.
Still haven't managed to upload the Satisfactory ones because of not having all the random stuff I needed to put it together, but that should get done this week at last.
That's coming soon. For now, you can check out some Owlboy.
Should have tried to make your own sparks. I want to see your take on sparkiness.
Now we've got to keep brand synchronicity.
Synergy. So enjoy all the synergy that we have with our video things. And then we'll be back in a couple of weeks for another Saladcast like this one, wherever you found this one.
It's funny.
Salad.net.
It's funny. Someone actually literally talked to me. Was it a couple of days ago about Knights of the Old Republic? And I'm like, that's weird. We just did a video for that. Like, it will go up on the site next week. So there you go.
Yeah. Enjoy our stilted start to KOTOR 2 and some amazing Sonic sneakers.
Yeah. What are those?
All right. Catch you next time, guys.